This BBC podcast is supported by ads outside the UK.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
You're about to listen to a brand new episode of Curious Cases. Shows are going to be released weekly, wherever you get your podcasts. But if you're in the UK, you can listen to the latest episodes first on BBC Sounds. I'm Hannah Fry.
And I'm Dara O'Brien.
And this is Curious Cases.
The show where we take your quirkiest questions,
your crunchiest conundrums,
and then we solve them.
With the power of science.
I mean, do we always solve them?
I mean, the hit rate's pretty low.
But it is with science.
It is with science. Are you a lucky person, Dara?
Yeah, I think I'm a lucky person.
Do you?
Yeah, and you know, it's backed up by what the public often say to me. Taxi drivers just say, God, you're lucky, aren't you? You that and you're stealing a living, and
sure.
How long more do you have to put up with you? So that's
the public are very wise.
They are very wise. I mean, there's a lot of wisdom in crowds, and I have a lot of crowds who shout that at me. But generally, yes, I do. Even as a kid, like my parents said, "Oh, if you fell off a cliff, you'd land on a mattress." But like, do you regard yourself as a lucky person?
I do regard myself as lucky, but I sort of think when something bad almost happens and then it doesn't happen, that's like the biggest amount of evidence for me that it's like, whew, yeah, got away with that one, you know?
See, this is like my Irish mammy. I crashed a car once and she said, well, you're very lucky. And I said, by definition, I'm not lucky. I was just in a car crash.
But you are.
But she said, no, you're lucky because it wasn't worse. And I go,
yeah.
But it also it happened. So, you know, there's a glass half full, glass half empty.
There is a little bit. Could have been so much worse.
But I'd like to think that to be a lucky person, there must be some just brutal thing that I could walk into a casino, just pick up the dice and snake eye. And then is snake eye good or bad? I
think snake eye's something else altogether.
No, it's the two, you know, 2 ones in a
okay, sure.
Snake eyes. And they go, sir, this is a roulette table.
You don't belong here.
Yeah. But like that kind of like.
Do the cards land well for you?
Yes.
I mean, I think the cards have landed pretty well for you, Dara.
Yeah, I think we both agree that. Yeah. I mean, look at me. I didn't win the genetic lottery. And yet
here we are,
yeah.
Sat across the table from me.
Yes.
What more luck could you have? Well, okay, this all came in because we had a question from Robin. Have a listen to this.
Hi, my name is Robin and I live in Warwick. And despite being blind, I've always thought of myself as a really lucky person. And I would like to know if some people are fundamentally more lucky than other people, and if there's been any scientific research into what makes us lucky. Is there any way we can affect our own luck? And can we actually become luckier people through our own actions? Thanks.
Tell you what I think's interesting there.
Yeah.
Is that Robin says, despite being blind, I've always thought of myself as a lucky person. I think there's something really lovely in that, right?
There is. And also I think that it indicates that Robin has objectively been dealt a difficult hand and has clearly treated with a very positive attitude.
Yeah.
And that, I think, bleeds over into everything else.
Well, okay, luckily for us, we have got 2 amazing people who are going to help us answer these questions, because joining us, we have Richard Wiseman, who is a Professor of Public Understanding of Psychology at the University of Hertfordshire, and David Spiegelhalter, Emeritus Professor of Statistics at Cambridge University. So, David, I mean, you seem like the person who could define this for us. What is luck?
It's been called the operations of chance taken personally. I tend to think of it as things that happen that were out of your control, you can't find a real cause for, and yet worked out either badly or well for you. So I don't think of it as some magical external force, the goddess Fortuna that's shining down on us, but just something we apply afterwards to stuff that happened, which was good or bad.
So it's a retrospective take on things that just happened by chance.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to think about it.
But then even in that, right, you could split it even further because there's sort of circumstantial luck.
Yeah, right? I love the deconstructions of luck.
Me too.
Yeah. Actually, the first one, or the most basic, is what's called existential luck, which is the luck of being here at all. Now, physicists know it's quite remarkable that even the galaxy exists, that all the constants have to be in this Goldilocks zone, and then the fact that life exists at all is extraordinary. But I was thinking just of each of us personally, of how we came to be. And if you think of, the best way is to think of it, how easily would it have been not to have been, not to exist? My grandfather was nearly killed in the First World War. My mother was captured by pirates when she was young. My father nearly died of TB on the operating table. And then I actually researched my own conception. Now, it's very difficult to think about your own conception, but I was born in August 1953, and that means I was conceived in late November 1952, and I researched the weather records because they were living in a stone cottage built in 1820 in North Devon that I lived in as a kid, and I know there's very little heating, and it turned out that there was an incredible cold snap at the end of November 1952, which made the national news, and so they had to keep warm, and here I am. But I might so easily not have been.
So easily may not have been.
So that's existential luck. And then we got, I think, the other type, which is actually the most important, is constitutive luck, which is the luck of who you were born as. Just who your parents were, the circumstances, the age and history, the geography where you're born, the social class, everything, your opportunities you're born into, about which we can take zero responsibility at all, and yet is so influential for the whole of the rest of our lives. And I was a sort of boomer, born into a very fortunate generation. I had amazing constitutive luck. And then you got, as you mentioned, the word circumstantial luck, which is being at the right place at the right time, or at the wrong place at the wrong time, like my grandfather, being blown up by a shell as he was walking along a road near Passchendaele. So, and then finally got what I like, outcome luck. And that's the final bit of just how it happened to work out for you at that time. That last little consequence, which could go well or go badly. For my grandfather, it went well because he survived.
Well, so he was lucky then.
He was incredibly lucky. In the end, he was incredibly lucky to survive, yeah.
Because the thing is, I think that lots of this sort of very big picture stuff about, you're lucky that we're not born during the bubonic plague, for instance, right? We're very sort of lucky to live at a time in history when you can make it into adulthood and, live a kind of comfortable life. But I think that often when people use the word luck, they think much more about what you called circumstantial luck, right? Like the sort of the chance encounters, coincidences.
Meeting people on a train, being on holiday and meeting somebody who you know from home. They happen all the time to everybody, but they happen to some people more than others.
Do they?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I get people coming up and say, all these coincidences keep on happening to me. I saw somebody yesterday wearing, a red coat, and then later on in London, I saw them again, and I thought, I had never noticed any of that. I wouldn't have. So, and then someone said, I talked to this person on a train and their children went to the same university. I thought, I never talked to anyone on trains. So coincidence happen to those who are actually observant and those who talk to other people. I'm terribly English. I won't talk to anybody.
But is there, it's interesting that the types of luck you define, some of them, it's almost like there's a scale of how invisible they are to people. It's invisible to us, the anthropic principle that we were only here because the conditions for life are all right. That is the greatest fluke chance of all. But yet it is so,
because if it hadn't occurred, we wouldn't
be here anyway. Or for a long time, we did not presume, and that's kind of almost a sociological debate about what the privilege of being born in certain strata, and we become more aware probably of that, but that was also quite invisible. And yet we fixate on things like a chance meeting, when actually those occur so often that is it not inevitable that they're going to happen to somebody.
Exactly. We focus on these downstream things that happen to us on just on a day. We don't, and then suddenly a surprise happens during the day, and I love it. They're great to hear about. But in the end, strange things happen because there's so many opportunities for them to happen.
I had a friend who had a joke years ago. He said about walking down the street in Dublin past 10,000 people, walked down another street in Dublin past another 5,000 people, walked down another street in Dublin past 7,000 people. I see one person and I go, small world. And there is a touch of, we like order, we like structure, and we like the sense of happy thing happening, and it must have therefore happened for a reason. But there are, in terms of being lucky, in terms of a roll of the dice or a game, or is there any evidence that there are people who are like in that brutal sense of let's strip all the stuff away and just go for do people incur chance better? Are there people for whom these things happen?
When it comes to things like dice and chance, no, if it's just an external force, I don't believe there is any external influence on events that make people luckier or not. No, that's just chance.
Okay, but then hold on a second though, right? Because you could flip a coin here, right? And there is a small chance, very small chance, that you might get 10 heads in a row.
1 in 1,000.
1 in 1,000, exactly.
Yep.
He's getting coins out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine. We're actually just doing this.
Of course, a statistician always carries coins.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to flip this coin.
They've got some fancy pouches here as well,
I know.
David.
So I'm going to flip this coin.
Go on, yeah.
What's the probability this will be heads?
50-50.
Okay, I'm going to flip it and cover it up.
Yep.
And I'm going to look at it. Now, what's your probability this is heads?
So is it still 50-50 for me?
Yeah, it's still 50-50 for you.
But you know the answer.
I know the answer. So our uncertainty and our feeling about the surprise is very personal. It's to do with our relationship to the world. And then, of course, I can show you the coin.
Oh, you cheated. That's why it's in a fancy pouch. It's double-sided.
Yeah, you don't let that slip into circulation.
It hasn't got any heads at all. So you're so cocky with your first 50-50, but you've been completely deluded because you trusted me. And so we can be very easily influenced by, what we believe is chance. We really have to check what is real true chance and what isn't.
Okay, I want to go back to this idea of whether some people are more lucky in a way that they are not driving, right? In a way that they're just more likely to go into a casino and the cards lay down in their favour. Because, right, you could flip a real coin, not a sort of sneaky statistician trick coin.
Yeah.
But you could flip a real coin 10 times in a row, and if 1,000 people did it, one of them probably would get 10 in a row.
And Darren Brown did it on his show. He showed a continuous film, no cutting at all, and he flipped a coin 10 times in a row, 1 in 1,000 chance. Only later revealed that they'd filmed for 9 hours solid in order to get the final 10 flips. And we've worked out that it was actually quite unlucky to take that long. And my colleague James Grime tried it. He did it in an hour. It's all on YouTube. It's the most tedious YouTube video you can ever think of. But he ends up by getting the 10 heads in a row, which is really remarkable. So he was quite lucky. We'd expect it to take about 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours.
But then if you've got billions of people alive, right?
Yeah.
Some people surely will just by chance have more lucky lifetimes than others.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's just because stuff happens and there's huge variation in what happens and there's every opportunity. Someone's going to win the lottery just because so many people buy tickets.
And it's just whether we're noticing it or not.
We attach meaning.
It's called apophenia. We attach meaning to events that actually don't have any structure. And we love to do that. We want a story, we want a reason behind everything that happens. And we do it very naturally. We're storytellers as people. I changed my whole philosophy researching my book when I found thinking about my conception and thought about that. Because I think I used to think that I was on Earth for some reason. And now I think I'm on Earth because it was a bit cold on November 1952. And so actually, I don't think that's a very good enough reason.
Richard, how do you see things in all this? What's your definition of luck?
Well, in our research, we just use the idea of luck being a seemingly chance events that work out in your favour. Then you're a lucky person. So you're in the right place at the right time. You bump into somebody that has a significant effect on your life. You can always find a parking space when you want one. All those sorts of things. That's how we defined luck. And it turns out when you do that some people, around about 12% of the population, consider themselves exceptionally lucky. And around about 9% consider themselves exceptionally unlucky. They never get a break, according to them. And so we're interested in the psychology of that. Why were these people living such different lives? And what can you do to change people's luck?
Okay, so the real end game of this is how people perceive themselves. And in fact, Professor Maya Young at UC Irvine in the US studies these kind of self-beliefs that people have.
My name is Maya Young, and what I found in my research is that people who believe in luck, meaning I think of myself as a lucky person, are more likely to also believe in the value of superstitious behaviors. Like, it would be reasonable for someone to change their signature after signing several bad deals, or it'd be reasonable for a student to carry a special lucky pen when taking exams at school. I think there's an impulse for people to wonder whether luck beliefs are rational or irrational. I spend more time thinking about whether something's helpful or not helpful to us. The people in my study who said that they were lucky were...
Hello Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
Also more likely to say, I like to master things, I like to do things well, I like to persist, even when I don't get positive feedback at first. Maybe I'm failing at something at first, but I'm going to keep going at it. And in that way, you can see that someone who has a luck belief actually makes their own luck because they persist at something when they're not actually succeeding at first. And you can probably imagine them actually succeeding more often if they are willing to choose tasks that are hard, if they're more willing to persist at tasks that are difficult.
Richard, you've studied all this. This is the phrase I think that I was waiting to hear appear, makes their own luck. I mean, to what extent is that a proper psychological phenomena?
Oh, I think it's very real. I mean, when you ask people, are you lucky or unlucky, they often have some kind of sense of that. And sometimes it's tied to a particular domain. They'll say, I'm lucky in love, but unlucky in my career or whatever it is. And I think there's something genuinely authentic going on there. So I think people do make their own luck by the way they think and behave. It doesn't account for every single aspect of their lives. There are many events which are outside our control, but often if you're a positive person, if you're on the lookout for opportunities, if you're very flexible in your mindset, if you're very resilient, as we're just hearing that clip there, all those things will have a profound and dramatic effect on your life. So I'm a big fan of taking luck seriously and not saying, oh, it's just, irrational or it's superstitious, we should ignore it. It has survived across time for a very good reason. And it's deeply embedded in our psyche, I think, because it really matters to our lives.
What are the difference between, let's put in quotation marks, a lucky person and an unlucky one?
Oh, I mean, I've met hundreds of them over the years, and the researcher interviewed many. And you can almost walk in the room and tell them straight away. So the lucky people are a lot more alert, they're engaged, they're very flexible in their thinking. So when an opportunity comes up, they'll make the most of it. And they are open to those opportunities. The unlucky people, life isn't going so well for them. According to them, it's not their fault. And of course, our emotions are contagious. So you walk into a room with somebody, who doesn't feel quite so lucky, and you start to feel a bit down yourself. And so those people often become a bit more socially isolated, which means they don't have opportunities and resilience associated with social support. So yeah, there's all sorts of things which make up the psychology of luck. And I think it's absolutely fundamental to our identity.
Can you be trained to be lucky? Can you be trained to think yourself to be lucky?
Yeah, that's what we did. We did a whole series of studies called Luck School, where we got people to think and behave differently. And around about a third, maybe 40% of people can change the way they think and behave. The easiest thing, which I always used to talk about as being something we can all do tonight, is keeping a luck diary. So before you go to bed, you just jot down, and you do have to write it down. It doesn't work if you just think about it. You jot down the luckiest thing that's happened to you today. And you do that every night. And after about 2 weeks, you've kind of built up this evidence in front of you of you being a luckier person. And that then impacts how you see yourself, which then impacts on all the things that I'm talking about. So it's a really simple intervention, but actually it's quite an effective one.
If you attach electrodes to people and every time they said something about them being unlucky, you zap them, would that be counterproductive? Would, on the one hand, I'm thinking this methodology isn't perfect, is it?
I'm liking the sound of it. Though.
Yeah, it just feels like they would think it's unfortunate I'm in this study.
Yes. Yeah, I think it'd be a tricky one to get through ethics.
But a shout out to the unlucky, though, because if you have that attitude ingrained, is there a confirmation bias element? You're going to see proof of this.
Oh,
And
hugely, and same with luck. I mean, good luck. Yeah, so absolutely, you see the negative things in your life, and it's not to deny them. This is not to deny the reality of that. People have very difficult lives.
Yeah.
So it absolutely isn't, and a lot of that is beyond their control. We have to say that, but a good percentage is about how we see events. So in our study, we had the imaginary scenario that we put to almost everyone, which was imagine you're in a bank, in bursts a robber, they fire a gun, and the bullet hits you in the arm. Are you lucky or unlucky? And our unlucky people would go, of course I'm unlucky. I've just been hit by a bullet in the arm. I can't believe you're even suggesting that I could be lucky. The lucky people would go, my goodness, amazing good luck. Yeah. Could have been my head, could have been my heart. You know, if it's a big raid, I'll sell my story to some journalists, I'll make some money, and so on. So you could give people exactly the same event, and it'd be perceived in two dramatically different ways.
Yeah, that's the that's the Irish mammy test.
It's the Irish mammy test.
The Irish mammy test, like whatever. Well, aren't you lucky you didn't get killed the time you crashed your car into a wall? I crashed my car into a wall. Why are you? But Irish mammies, they spin that up. They spin it up the entire time.
Luck of the Irish. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and honestly, there's no backing for that at all. But we'll thanks. We'll take the phrase.
It's just the mammies.
Yeah, it's just mammies talking you up. What was the task you used? You're starting using involving a newspaper.
Yeah, that was one of our many studies. This was to do with opportunities. So the lucky people would say, I get all these opportunities all the time. The unlucky people would say, I never get a break. We wanted to see whether or not there was anything to that. Were the lucky people more likely to notice opportunities? So what we did was have them come into the lab. We gave them a newspaper, and they had to flick through and count the number of photographs and illustrations in the newspaper. It's really dull. What we didn't tell them is we placed 2 half-page ads in the newspaper. These things were huge. And one of them said, stop counting. There are 52 photographs in here. And the other one said, win £100 by telling the experimenter you've seen this. And so it was amazing. The unlucky people tended to go straight past them. It was just another unlucky day. And the lucky people would stop and go, oh, my goodness, it's great. Can I have my £100? And we'd explain it was just an experiment. They weren't that lucky. But still, it was this notion that to some extent they were creating their own luck by noticing these opportunities or not.
Tell you what, you mentioned unlucky people there a couple of times. We just so happen to have someone who is known as the unluckiest man on British television. Edward Oldfield, thank you for joining us. You're bringing the average amount of luck in this room down to a nice level.
Do you know what? That my luck goes beyond my own personal bad luck. The number of television shows I've been on, and then after I've been on it, that show is axed.
So hold on a second then. How did you gain this title of being the unluckiest man on British television?
I applied to go and come down with me. I went on it, came last, so I've spoilt the fun now if you want to watch the show at any time. But then about 18 months later, it was voted the funniest episode of all time by readers of the Radio Times. And then that little chink goes off in your head and thinks like, television likes me. And I got a couple of tip-offs about different shows. And I started to think, well, I lost on Come Down With Me, but there is a chance of making money if you go on quiz shows, which is what I did. And then about 10 or so quiz shows later, still not won anything. And
but how can you sustain this? You keep losing, don't you?
Keep losing, yeah. 54 shows and counting.
54 separate quiz/game shows.
Television shows. So different things. So say, for example, with Britain's Got Talent. Yeah, £250,000 if I win. I went on 2 consecutive series of Britain's Got Talent as a comedian.
Right.
Sarah?
Yeah.
And I lost.
But do you work as a comedian?
No!
Well, then, I feel there's a flaw in your method here.
Also, to be fair, almost everybody loses Britain's Got Talent. There's only one winner.
So what would happen now if you actually did win something?
Oh, I'd retire. I'm like a compulsive gambler. The wife says to me, look, you need to give up on this. You're making a fool of yourself. You never actually do anything sensible. I mean, an example of that is when somebody rang me up from Ninja Warrior UK and said, do you fancy doing Ted with Ninja Warrior UK? And I said, I'm getting a bit on in my days now. It's not really a show that I do. He said, well, you'll know that we always put somebody on that dresses up in some silly outfit, makes a fool of himself. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I think that's the thing. It was like Richard Wiseman was saying before, take every opportunity that's available to you, because that is the first step.
Yeah, but you're unlucky. Honestly, it's like the entire message. You've just ruined it at the end, because you're positive, you're taking all the opportunities, and yet you remain unlucky.
Unlucky. I'm a good loser, though. I think that's the key thing.
Oh,
you'll get
what, to losing?
I'm laughing off. You know, you sort of look on the positive side of things.
As well. Are you keeping a diary of how lucky you are every day? What do you reckon, Richard? Anything we can do to change Edward's luck?
No, I think he's beyond help.
Beyond help, thank you.
Well, no, what's interesting is that actually you're rather enjoying being unlucky.
Yeah.
And so that's key to it. So probably there's not that much motivation to change. You might be rather disappointed if suddenly things started going your way. Yeah. So as long as you're comfortable with being unlucky in this particular sphere of your life, then I think that's great. Yeah, may your bad luck continue for the foreseeable future.
I think it's a brand now, right? I think
there's victory and failure.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I think there's one good. I think I think it doesn't with you come down to lucky or unlucky. I think it's a more profound psychological issues that we really don't have the time. We honestly can't have time to go through it all. Edward, thank you very much. Good luck. What's the next one?
I can never say until it's aired, but just you watch that small screen it's probably a big screen these days, isn't it? A 52-inch Darrow or something.
Yeah.
You'll see me one day, don't worry.
Very good. So, Richard, can you change your luck?
I think everyone can improve their luck, absolutely. I mean, there's always going to be limitations on it. I mean, as we said before, it depends, the sort of social class and parents and circumstance and so on. But within any of those groups, I think there's things you can do to improve your luck. And it's not that difficult. It is a question of change. And often, we do find change quite challenging because we don't really understand how our minds work. But once you get your head around the idea that to some extent, you're creating some of the bad and good luck by the way you're thinking and behaving, absolutely.
David, why have you taken out a pack of cards?
Well, it's this, what Richard just said reminds me of this phrase, making the best of the hand you've been dealt.
Yes.
You can't choose who you're born as, but people can try to make the best out of it. And I always say I like the analogy of that because we're all biologically unique, we're all totally unique, and it leads to this idea that if you do a decent shuffle of the cards, that's unique as well. I mean, I've just shuffled the cards properly, and I can just be really confident that no one in the entire human history has ever had a shuffle in that order before. And I can shuffle them again, and I can open them up, and I can say I can be really not logically sure, but I can be more confident of anything else I could ever claim that no one has ever had the cards in that order before. And that's unlike the sort of coincidences I was doing before. This is where a coincidence is much less likely than people think it is. Because people think that, I had to shuffle and that shuffle will occur again. No, it won't. It won't. Not in your lifetime. Never. And so that's an idea where the maths works to make things far less likely, you think. And the point is, because there's so many shuffles. I think it's 10 to the 67 shuffles or something. That's the same as the number of atoms in the galaxy. And people find that really difficult to grasp.
Is that a bit of a nihilistic tone of sense? we are merely particles, like this thing in the universe of things. So honestly, have a good attitude, have a bad attitude, makes no difference. You are merely a particle floating through the galaxy, one of 10 to the 67 particles, and it's not going to make any difference either way.
I think we're not going to get either more philosophical or more accurate than that, frankly. Let's say thank you very much to all of our guests, Richard Wiseman, Maya Young, Edward Oldfield, and David Spookhouter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so look, there's nothing we can do about the universe, but it's in the mind.
Basically, we were right all along.
Yeah, that's kind of reassuring.
Didn't need to listen to the whole episode,
Do you know
really.
why we were right all along?
Tell me.
Because we're lucky people.
You're absolutely right.
It's opportunity. As long as you believe there are opportunities, then you can do it. So many positive messages, but the main one is we're delighted with ourselves.
I do like that idea though, right? I do like that idea of just seeing things through that lens of like, yeah, it's going to work out for me.
Yeah,
it sort of always does.
Oh, no. And even when things haven't, it's sort of opened other doors and you did something else and then you're able to fold it into a narrative where, this is probably what was supposed to happen.
I mean, if you can get an anecdote out of any unluck.
Honestly, if something bad happens, if something embarrassing happens, something awful happens, you go, there's a tour done. I'm going to be telling this story for years.
And isn't that lucky?
If you want to be notified as soon as a new episode is released, make sure you're subscribed to Curious Cases on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on.
Greetings, malevolent munchkins, fiendish friends, and devilish do-gooders. Welcome back to the home of the oxymoron. Evil genius! I'm Russell Kane, and I'm delighted to be steering the ship that unceremoniously wrenches historic figures from their perfect pedestals so that we can decide whether they're evil, genius, or a heady concoction of the two. It's like the podcast version of telling your kids the ice cream van plays music when it's out of ice cream. Yes, it's evil. Yes, it's genius. Get on board now and listen to Evil Genius on BBC Sounds.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
This BBC podcast is supported by ads outside the UK.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
I'm Hannah Fry.
And I'm Dara O'Brien.
And this is Curious Cases.
The show where we take your quirkiest questions,
your crunchiest conundrums,
and then we solve them.
With the power of science.
I mean, do we always solve them?
I mean, the hit rate's pretty low.
But it is with science.
It is with science. Welcome back to another episode of Curious Cases. We got a sporty question today.
Oh, see, okay, I think that suits because it's Saturday morning. This thing is on it. And I feel there's people in cars driving their kids to sports events right now, so that a sporty question would be perfect.
Or think big. Let's assume that we're on in the coach in the Arsenal football team.
They're on the drive. Hey everybody, hey guys, I know that we normally just wear our big headphones before the game, but I wanted to watch you some popular science. I thought that would be really get us in the zone for
What could be more motivating than the question that we have today? Because today we've had a question in from Ivy, who is 12, who asks, what makes a good athlete? Something to ponder on your way to the match, isn't it?
Isn't it? Oh, but imagine if you go, maybe it's not me. Imagine what we're doing is shattering the self-belief of a football team on the way to a game.
Hey.
Am I though? And they're staring at their own arm going, is this the arm of an athlete? Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some real existential dread that could come from the word good there, isn't there?
Okay, so we're recommending today's episode for anyone bar professional athletes of a delicate mental composition. And is Ivy a sports person herself?
She is, yeah. She's a swimmer. Hopefully not of a delicate composition.
Yes.
Do you do any sport?
Do I look like somebody who's like doing endurance events?
Maybe.
I was, and then I got bounced out of it by a bad knee. I've got a dodgy knee. I've got a hole in my knee. Like, it's pretty dramatic. Like,
an
there's a bit
actual
missing.
hole?
An actual gap where there should be more knee.
Where did the more knee go?
The more knee is outside. It's sitting in a jar in my office at home.
Did it remove itself?
No, it rattled around and I had to be opened up and it had to be taken out. Goodness. And then I had a bit where somebody sat me down and said, never run again.
Okay.
Which is a thing to be told at 33.
Oh,
I was like 33. Turns out I'm entirely ceramic. And that if I were to land, if I'm running for a train or something and land the wrong way, the whole thing would shatter into a million pieces.
So you know what? There's actually a test to find out what sport you could be best at, even taking into account your knee.
Yeah.
So it's it's a test that's been done by the BBC.
Okay.
And I would say it is more cute than definitive. Okay. We'll start off. How tall are you, Dara? Tall or short?
Tall.
I would say you're very tall.
Yeah, I'd be very tall.
Are you most like a rhino or kitten? I think this is in power terms rather than body build.
Look, you'd have to say rhino rather than kitten.
Sure. Yeah. If you say so. Hang on. Is this test how you are or how you see yourself?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's the thing. Because I'm quite kittenish in other ways. I carry some heft. Let's say more rhino than kitten.
Yeah, you're built for the plough.
Yeah.
Okay, if you were curry, how spicy would you be?
Is it like in terms of like how...
I think it's aggressiveness.
Medium spicy.
Medium. Do you catch more balls than you drop?
Catch. Yeah, 8.
Nothing gets past me?
Oh, yeah. 8, 9. Yeah.
Goodness, okay. And body fat. Are you thin and crispy pizza or a stuffed crust with
What's
extra
the
cheese?
Euphemism? I'm the guilty pizza. I'm the one you ring out for when you...
Squidgy around the edges.
I would say things are stuffed into the crust.
There's extra mozzarella.
There is, yeah.
More like a tortoise or more like a hare?
Is it like, am I faster or am I...
I think it's about endurance.
No, never great for that. Oh, it's short distance.
Exhausted already?
Yeah, I'm done. And we haven't done all the questions.
We've got one to go.
Yeah.
Do you move like a cat or sloth? Agility, this is.
Midway.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Okay, what should I be doing? How should I be doing my Saturday mornings?
Are you ready?
I'm looking forward to it.
Your number one closest match, Dara?
Yeah.
Netball.
Wow. Netball.
Number 2, hockey.
Is there, what?
I did mention that you were a teenage girl, is that?
But am I supposed to just turn up at a netball thing?
Look, it says here, height is a big deal in netball.
Oh, height's hugely important.
The taller the better. Coordination, communication, the 2 big C's.
But that's genuinely really disappointing.
I'm afraid this test is based on science, so...
Okay, so, I better get a singlet and a short skirt and start my netball career. Could you imagine if you ran out onto the netball and I'm there? What are you doing here? I know, I'm so sorry. It was a BBC website that sent me here.
In the studio with us today, we have Dr. Polly McGuigan, who is a biomechanist from the University of Bath.
And Dr. Mitch Lomax, who specialises in exercise physiology at the University of Portsmouth. Mitch, could we have a more general question then? What makes a good athlete?
Yeah, I mean, where do you start with that? I guess the first thing is you've got to have a really, really good support network. So let's just get that out there. But I guess dedication to training. Lots and lots of training.
When you say training, what are you looking to do, looking to achieve? What are you trying to change?
Yeah, so it depends on what sport you're doing. So if you're, say, an aerobic athlete, so someone who might run or swim for, I don't know, more than a few minutes, you've got to have a really good aerobic system or aerobic capacity because you've got to just keep going and keep going and keep going. If you're more of a power athlete, so you're doing really short, sharp bursts of activity, then you've got to have high levels of strength, good power, those kinds of things. So it depends on the sport.
You're a swimmer yourself?
I am. I'm a returning to competitive swimmer. So yes, I've been out of the sport for a little bit, but my research is mainly all in swimming.
Right, okay. Ivy, our question is also a swimmer. So it really depends on what sport you're doing. And even within sports, I presume you can break it down that like somebody doing an 800 metre versus somebody doing a 50 metre sprint, they're going to have a totally different schedule.
Yes. Yeah. For example, if you take, say, someone like Adam Peaty versus Rebecca Adlington.
Which is essentially the sprinter versus the middle distance runner.
Yes. So with Adam Peaty, who's a sprinter, so he'll do 100 metres, he did a lot more strength training than Rebecca Adlington. So he'd spend a lot more time on dry land training because he needs to build strong muscles, whereas Rebecca Adlington did less dry land training and would do more of her training in the pool.
So he was trained to be explosive, short burst, and she was trained for more endurance.
Yeah, but the distance that they swam per week was actually relatively similar. So I think Rebecca Adlington typically would swim about 45 to 47 kilometres a week. Adam Peaty does around about 50, or he was doing around about 50 kilometres a week. So he's still doing lots and lots of distance work. It's just that the tailoring of that training differs for the different athletes.
That's a lot of moisturiser and talcum powder, isn't it?
Isn't it? By the way, there'll be more serious questions than this, but How far into it before the water stops going up your nose? I mean, do they is that presumed, or how much? Because that's just, and that spin, that turn.
Yeah,
I mean, do they learn not to have water go up their nose?
Well, there's a very easy way to stop that, is you just hum. Seriously, if you just hum in the water, you can't get air up your nose.
Why do I feel like nothing we say over the next 26 minutes is going to land as much as, really?
Yeah,
and when you're doing the
seriously.
kick thing at the end,
Well, you generally hold your breath when you're turning. So most of the tumble turn, you'll be actually just holding your breath. So if you're holding your breath, you're not going to get water up your nose. But if you hum...
Particular tunes or
anything that makes you happy.
Well, I want to know though. Okay, so when you're building up this tolerance for stamina, as it were, what actually happens inside the body? What's different to somebody who has that stamina versus somebody who's just not, like me and Dara?
Yeah, and the key changes that happen with that kind of stamina change is really related to the lungs and the cardiovascular system. Things like the amount of blood going to your working muscles. You get better at delivering that blood, so you're better able to take away blood from inactive regions and give it to the active regions. So you've got oxygen, you've got nutrients, and then you can also get rid of the byproducts. We also see things like capillarization, and that helps, again, get oxygen into the muscles and get the waste products out of the muscles so they can be moved away. And
when you say capillarization, is this actively more capillaries?
Yes.
Or is it that they dilate?
Yeah, no, actively more. And you get that really quickly. It's actually one of the first adaptations that occurs. So there's some of the key endurance adaptations. And if you're doing, say, strength training, you'll see that with the muscle fibres that are really good for kind of anaerobic events or power and sprint events.
Well, we're going to come back to that in a minute, because I just want to go on to running, if I can, Polly. Because, okay, so how is everything that we've described for swimmers, how does it differ for runners?
So in terms of the physiological adaptations, you're looking for similar things. You are looking for that ability to deliver blood to the muscles that are powering the running. I guess the difference is around that specificity of training. So being able to train the neuromuscular system to activate muscles at the right time, in the right coordinated manner, to make the best of what you've got. You see really quick adaptations in that neuromuscular control. So when people get stronger and faster earlier on in training, a lot of that is due to improved coordination of their systems, improved technique, and then the added benefits of years and years of training become less and less over time, and they are all about sort of those fine 1% that make the difference between winning and not winning.
The coordination of the system, though, is that just you get what you're given? Or is that something you can improve?
You can undoubtedly improve it. So there is a hugely important element of your genetics, of your morphology, and you're not going to be able to make huge changes in that, but you can very definitely train what you've got to be able to do what you want to do better. So if we're thinking about muscles specifically, a sprinter wants to be able to generate a lot of force and generate force very quickly. They do that with the fastest twitch muscle fibres. And what training aims to do is focus on those muscles to make those muscle fibres bigger that actually don't use oxygen. They produce force in an anaerobic way, and then they recover from it afterwards. Whereas an endurance athlete uses different types of muscle fibres. They use slower twitch muscle fibres that still generate a lot of force, because endurance runners are still running very quickly compared to mere mortals like us, but they do that using muscles that require oxygen and a steady supply of that oxygen.
I think I worked this out once when Paula Radcliffe did the marathon. I worked it out that to run at the same pace as her, you'd have to be at level 20 on the treadmill. Jesus. But for like 2 hours solidly.
Yeah. I mean, if you pause for 1 second, you're in the wall.
Game over.
You're flung to the back of the room.
Game over, absolutely. Yeah. I can't get past level 11 at full sprinting, I've got to be honest with you.
So in terms of the men's world record marathon pace, that's the equivalent of running 100 metres in 17 seconds.
For 2 hours.
For 2 hours.
I mean, they're not like us, are they?
No.
That one thing you said about running efficiency is interesting, though, because I did get once I was there when Mo Farah was doing a group run. Lots of people were allowed to go on a run with Mo Farah. And the thing that was particularly noticeable was that his feet did not make a sound as they touched the ground. I mean, he was doing it about a tenth of his normal pace, but yeah, it was incredibly efficient running.
And actually the noise that your feet make is used as a training tool, as a really useful biofeedback training tool of sort of, imagine that you've got a credit card between your heel and the ground and you don't want to squash the credit card. That kind of thing is actually quite a powerful training tool as you are helping people to adapt their technique and things like that.
So when I run, the noise is fee, fo, fi, fum. That's all I can hear.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
Okay, well, some people, Usain Bolt, won the genetic lottery. But of course, genes are going to be a really big part of this story. So we asked Alan Williams, who is a Professor of Sport and Exercise Genomics at Manchester Metropolitan University, to give us an example of the differences that just one gene variant can make and whether or not you can test somebody's genes to work out whether they'd make a good athlete.
When it comes to elite power athletes, the best example is the gene ACTN3, and it stands for alpha-actinin 3. So the gene, as most genes will do, codes for making a particular protein, and that particular protein is found only in fast twitch or type 2 muscle fibers that we have. And there's a common variant in that gene where some people will have two effectively non-functioning versions of that gene. So they are lacking that protein in their fast twitch fibers. But it doesn't affect them massively, it doesn't affect their health, they can still be quite good athletes. But in the extremely competitive environment of high-level sport, then if you are missing that protein, then it seems to limit your sort of speed, power, performance just a little bit, maybe only by 1%, but obviously at the elite level that can be really important. The reality is that while we know about certain genetic variants, the vast majority of genetic variants that are influencing physical performance are as yet unknown. I think it would be wrong to make a conclusion about an individual's potential based on genetic tests given the current state of knowledge. It's like looking at a jigsaw with I don't know, 6 pieces in, but it's 500 pieces, and trying to make a conclusion about what the picture is at the end. I don't think you can do that realistically.
Okay, so if that there is an example of a protein that's used in fast twitch muscles, are you sort of locked into what you've got, or can you change this?
You can change your muscle fibers. It's not easy to do, but if you've got, say, a lot of fast twitch fibers and you're dedicated to doing endurance training, so that more kind of slow repetitive training, that kind of exercise mainly uses your slow twitch fibers. So what you can do over time is you can convert your fast twitch fibers to slow twitch fibers, and you can go the other way as well. But it's not easy to do. It's not one of the first things that happens. It's one of the much later training adaptations. So you can't rewrite your genetics, but you can modify your fibre makeup or your muscle makeup to a certain extent.
And then what about the other way around then? If you could, I mean, okay, fine, genetic testing at the moment, we don't know everything. But do you reckon there will be a point in the future where you can just like run someone's DNA and be like, you, my friend, you are the hobby horse champion of the world to be?
I think we will be able to advance talent identification in sport in ways that we're only teetering around the edge of at the moment. But that still doesn't take into account the kind of ability to train, the ability to push yourself mentally and physically, and that X factor that brings it all together.
Let's bask in the fact, however, that some people are just built for the sports they compete in. And so Michael Phelps is a perfect example as a legendary swimmer.
Yeah, if you're looking for the ideal male swimmer's body, Michael Phelps is your man, definitely. And if you kind of look at his body proportions, he has a long torso. In fact, his torso is longer than you would expect for a man of his height. So I think he's about 6'4", and his torso is the length of someone who you'd expect to be about 6'8". But if you actually measure his legs are about the length of someone who's 6 foot. Now, in something like swimming, that's ideal because you want a nice long torso, you want very long arms, which he also has, and you want slightly shorter legs because you want powerful legs, but you've got to drag those legs through the water. So with swimming, long torso, long arms, shorter legs, and lots of flexibility.
Does he also graze his knuckles on the floor sometimes?
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, he has what we call a high anthropometry index, which means his arms are longer than his torso.
And big hands like shovels.
Big hands, yeah, big hands and big feet. I know it sounds like we're painting someone who's very abnormal.
Yeah, homunculus. It's a very weird creature we've created here.
There's a really nice fluid dynamics fact about how closely your fingers should be together. You know about this? So I think that you're sort of taught, certainly I was taught when when I was learning how to swim, that you kind of keep your fingers closed. But actually, if you separate them slightly, then you get so many eddies and little bits of turbulence between your fingers that it adds to the size of your paddle.
Swimming's amazing, and particularly from the biomechanical aspect, it's a phenomenal sport when you add the biomechanics and the physiology, because you're horizontal, you've got all this extra pressure of water pressing down on you. You can't breathe when you want to breathe anyway, and then on top of that you've got water that's trying to compress your lungs, and you've got to fight with the water. There's loads of unique factors which make swimming very, very unique.
A lot of swimming is ridiculous. I think we should just go on the record here. The
breaststroke is ridiculous, quite frankly.
The butterfly?
Butterfly's amazing.
Oh, come on, it's a ridiculous thing. And because not to again, but I this knee thing, and the weirdest thing the doctor said after the operation was, "Oh, don't do the breaststroke kick. You're literally trying to kick your own leg off, or kick your foot off your leg."
Yeah.
Like the breaststroke kick is such an unnatural.
I think breaststroke's an unnatural stroke. I'm not a breaststroke swimmer. I'm a butterfly swimmer, so I like butterfly.
Sorry, she thinks breaststroke is unnatural.
Yeah, I know, and does the thing with your hands swooping out of the water, and whooshing back and
then neck off as high as you can.
Huge. You just like making a splash, just a big splash, and then down again. A lot of it is wrong. But also the decision of when you're underwater and when you're at the interface between water and air, and when it's better to use those. It's higher is better, presumably.
Yeah. The more buoyant you can be, the better. So again, what you see with someone like Michael Phelps is his centre of mass is very close to his lungs. So when he's flat on the water, he's nice and buoyant. The fact that he's got lovely, nice, long hands means that he can catch, and it stops him from sinking because he's also quite muscly. So the more muscular you are, the harder it's going to be to float. So good swimmers, the really good swimmers, we tend to see their centre of mass is much closer to their lungs. And again, that gives them a bit of a natural advantage, as long as they don't stand still for too long, because they will just start to sink.
Can we measure your wingspan?
Because we're thinking this is the best. I'm 6'4".
Okay.
Fairly long arms, but
should we measure it?
Go on. There's no great science. Presumably, you're just using a tape of some sort.
We're going to measure a tape measure. So we're going to measure from the tips of your left fingers to the tips of your right fingers.
And straight out from above.
Yep. Straight out.
I'm going to guess that they're shorter than your height.
Are you?
So this is 191.
Oh, that's very close. I'm about 100. I think I'm 195 centimetres in height.
What's the opposite of Neanderthal?
Which direction are we going? Neanderthal.
T-Rex.
Well, I'm not like I'm.
Little hands, big body.
Yeah. Return to this being impressive.
Do you know what, though? It worked great for netball.
Oh, yeah. See, that's my sport, apparently. Yeah. According to the website, that's the one I should try. What?
Not good for knees, though. No.
Oh,
really not good for knees.
Yeah. Okay, fine. I was planning to do it in a quite static way and basically using my heft to, shield. A lot of shielding. Goal defence. That's exactly, yeah. Just block the net.
Goalkeeper.
Goal defence. You're right.
Yeah. So is your wingspan normally around the same as your?
So swimmers will have a large wingspan. So Michael Phelps again has, I think his anthropometry index is something like 1.08.
The ratio of your height to your wingspan.
Yes, that's
so
it.
His wingspan is his height plus another 8%.
His is 1.052.
There we go. 1.052.
Whereas mine is 9.9899. Would have said.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's say that.
Yeah. So he's got an advantage on
zero, though, doesn't it?
It's 0.9 something. High 90s. That's fair enough. We have to move on to genetics. I know, because we focus very much on the biology, but sticking with the training, enduring the ups and downs, managing nerves and all of that is very much about mindset. So we spoke with sports psychologist Dr. Josephine Perry about some techniques that our listener Ivy might be able to use.
One thing you might do in order to really focus on your strengths is to create kind of mantras. So we often talk about kind of positive self-talk. There's instructional self-talk. So Ivy, when she's dived into the pool, she's really pushing at her 50-metre free. She really needs to think about what's the technical thing she needs to do to perform really, really well. But if Ivy were to get really nervous beforehand and she'd be getting all the butterflies in the tummy and the feeling of, I don't want to do this, what if I fail, what if somebody judges me or they might laugh at me and that would be embarrassing. What we would have Ivy do is focus on her motivational mantra. So her reason for doing it. What does she love about swimming? Where does she want to go with it? How will this race help her get there? One of the things as a sports psychologist I do is try never to ask the athletes I work with their results. So when they come into a session, I have to sit on my hands not to do it because it's so tempting to do it and you want to know how somebody's done. But also deep down, I don't want to know what their result was. I don't know what time they did or where they came. I want to know, did they follow the processes that make them proud? Did they follow all the tasks that they needed to do in order to be a more expert athlete? And if they did that, then actually they've done the right thing and they're much more likely to do well overall. And it's about a journey that can be very up and down at times, but it's a journey where they're constantly improving. It's not about individual results along the way.
So I suppose it's not about focusing on a stopwatch. It's just about in the training. Is it maybe this time I'm going to swim to improve my stroke. This time I'm going to swim to improve my breathing. This time I'm going to focus on a different thing and then let the overall picture not quite, sort itself out, as it were.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because as a physiologist, I do look at those things. So the way in which I can tell that a training program's working is by seeing, right, have you actually shaved a second off of your time? So when we've helped to put your training program together, we are looking for particular gains at certain periods of time. So have you achieved that? If you haven't, then we would go, okay, let's go back and look at what's happened with the training. Maybe you were injured, maybe you were ill. So I would approach it slightly differently. But again, it depends on the level of the athlete and what they're hoping to get out of it. Certainly with maybe younger athletes, people that are starting out, enjoyment is always key. But a psychologist would probably approach things very differently to me, which is why sport's brilliant, because it is a multidisciplinary activity. You're not going to perform well if you only have a physiologist or you only have a psychologist. We need all these different disciplines coming together to try and optimise our athletes.
I suppose what you're saying there is you're looking for a greater sense of purpose for it all rather than it being just about a race or just about a time. That it be an enjoyable thing in itself.
Yeah, it should be. It should always be enjoyable. But at the elite level, there's so many pressures for you've got to do this time because funding is dependent upon where your athletes come. It gets quite complicated. But fundamentally, yes, you need to be enjoying it. If you're not enjoying it, then do it?
You do hear that, though, of people who take penalties, of people who are sort of in those extremely high pressure moments in training, trying to go through that process of like making it feel like it's second nature, so that when the real pressure is on, the psychology of it actually supports them in that moment rather than counters them.
Yeah, definitely. You need to prepare for absolutely everything. And there's a good example again with Michael Phelps when he was younger. Periodically, his coach would rip off his goggles just before a race and say, this could happen. You could dive into a pool and you see it. Your goggles could come down. You need to know how to deal with that. So I'm not suggesting people go and do that. But the point is, you need to prepare in training for probably things that are going to happen that you don't want to happen when you're racing.
It's the idea that he go, the water's in my eyes, the chlorine. Is that the and he'd carry on swimming with it?
Basically, it's so that it doesn't affect his performance. So that rather than doing exactly that, which is what you're going to do, he just plows through and goes, oh, well.
Was his trainer previously a Russian gymnast?
I do not know.
I think, it's not a bad mess. I know that for me and the girls of the netball, we just do it because we love it. We just do it because...
just for the joy of the game.
Just for the joy of the game. It's for the love of the game. That's why I'm such an enthusiastic goal defence.
Keeper. Yes. So thank you very much indeed to our guests today, Dr. Mitch Lomax and Dr. Polly McGuigan. Well, there we go. Solved it.
Done. Ivy's going to be grand.
Ivy's going to be fine. I think swim lots is the...
That seems to be the key thing. But when you're swimming, do it in a way you enjoy it.
That's mainly the message that I'm getting with.
Yeah.
And the message you should take away for your netball.
We're always like this in the netball. I'm always saying, are we having fun? Are we having fun yet? I say to the girls. And they're going, stop. You're not on the team.
Stop using the word we.
You're not part of this, they keep saying. And I'm there going, Jenny, I'm clear. I'm open. Jenny never passes.
Jenny.
Oh, come on, Jenny. I'm trying here. Subscribe to Curious Cases on BBC Sounds and make sure you've got push notifications turned on, and we'll let you know as soon as new episodes are available.
It's the 1980s, and a young bodybuilder named William Dillon leaves rural Illinois behind for sun-drenched California in search of a supersized American dream. To get absolutely jacked.
When you're muscular, when you're big, you get respect.
But he's about to discover the secret to why so many of the bodybuilders around him are getting ripped quick. This is the story of the biggest illegal steroid operation the United States had ever seen.
Literally hundreds, if not 1,000 needles came down like the heavens were falling.
I'm Natalia Petrozella. From BBC Radio 4, this is Extreme. Muscle Men. Listen first on BBC Sounds.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
This BBC podcast is supported by ads outside the UK.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
I'm Hannah Fry.
And I'm Dara O'Brien.
And this is Curious Cases.
The show where we take your quirkiest questions,
your crunchiest conundrums,
and then we solve them.
With the power of science.
I mean, do we always solve them?
I mean, the hit rate's pretty low.
But it is with science.
It is with science. All right, Darren, what have we got this week?
Well, we have a chilling question sent in as ever to curiouscases@bbc.co.uk. We welcome all your questions, all about the science of freezing. Listen to this.
Hello, I'm Elspeth. I'm 13 years old and I live in York. And I was wondering, can living organisms be frozen and then unfrozen again in the future with the possibility of still being alive or being able to be reanimated? So maybe like a disease that we don't have a cure for yet, if you get frozen with the hope of being cured, or like astronauts visiting outer space. I would never ever want to be frozen. I think it would just be so weird and I'd hate it. Not for me at all. But like, some people are into it.
Does Elspeth know that you're not awake when you're frozen?
I mean, she's very much not into it herself.
Agree.
But it's an excellent question.
It is a great question.
Yeah, and topical as well. Because
Is
as you know, this week they're thawing out Walt Disney.
Are they?
No, but your face. There is.
I didn't know he'd been frozen.
See, this is the myth always that I heard at the time. This is going back to 70s and 80s, that Walt Disney had himself frozen so that in the future science could cure whatever it was. I don't even know what killed Walt Disney, but whatever it was, that he would
probably the cold.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that was the bit that did for him. But there's no evidence for it. It was just this amazing urban myth that Walt Disney had frozen himself, which is not far from what people have tried to do, but for some reason got pinned on Walt Disney. As if in the castle, in the Snow White's castle, in the middle of it, there is one room with liquid nitrogen spilling out.
And just Walt Disney's head in a tank.
It was always vague whether it was the head of the whole thing. Basically, I'm suspicious of this whole thing, but I'm happy to have the needle move.
Yeah, that it might be possible. Okay, the thing is that you know that like freezing some stuff is possible.
Yeah. Do you know how I know that? Because I have a freezer. And occasionally I reanimate some peas.
They're never what they once were.
They're never. Look, I accept that they're 80% of the pea they were, but they're still pretty good.
They're passable.
Yeah.
Sticking with the kitchen, you know, one of the first ever uses of the microwave was to defrost frozen hamsters.
What? I'm sorry.
All right, so this is
so much more context. Where?
It's like 1950s.
Right.
Okay, there's a group of scientists who had experimented with cryogenics, and they freeze hamsters. And then they were bringing them back to life successfully, but they were like heating up a spoon and then holding on the hamster's tummy, and it would work. They would come back to life, but I don't think it was particularly, comfortable. And so this was like a humane way to slowly thaw them, and it worked. They'd like run around.
Oh my God! It's not enough for me to live for 18 months, said the hamster. I want another 9 months out of this life.
I want to see 2026.
Yeah, why shouldn't hamsters dream of 3 years? Even 4, into the fourth year, not the full 4 years, into the fourth year.
Absolutely.
That's immortality for a hamster.
Let's see if those hamster dreams can come true, shall we?
Joining us in the studio is João Pedro Magalhães. Pedro is a professor at the University of Birmingham, where he studies aging and cryobiology. Very quickly, what's cryobiology, Pedro?
So cryobiology is the study of biological materials and biological samples at freezing temperature, so below zero.
Fantastic.
Nice. I mean, sort of say what you see.
Yeah,
yes, really. We are also joined in the studio by Hayley Campbell, a journalist and broadcaster and author of a book all about people who work with dead bodies, including people who work in cryonics. Thank you for joining us. All right, so what's cryonics then?
Cryonics is the freezing of dead people so that they can be reanimated in the future. It's basically Fry in Futurama, or Austin Powers.
Okay. So they were documentaries, is what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely true documentaries.
But, I mean, it does actually happen, though. People do actually do this.
Well, people have been frozen, but no one has yet been reanimated.
Okay. And then, so are there companies that offer this as a service?
There are. There's one called Alcor, which is based in Arizona. There's another one called the Cryonics Institute, which is in Detroit, which is the oldest one. And then there's one called Tomorrow Bio, which is in Switzerland.
So how many people in total then have been frozen?
So there are only about 500 people are actually frozen right now in cryostats. It's more a case of people signing up for something that they hope to do in the future. So there's a lot more sign-ups. There's 4,000 members, so people who've signed up.
See, I presume you could just... So it makes big promises, the idea that I will... And then we will make various promises, one of which is that we'll be able to thaw you, but also that whatever it was, whether heart disease or cancer, whatever, there will be some miraculous cure that not only can we bring you back.
But the thing is, they aren't making promises. This is what I thought going in when I went to the Cryonics Institute, because I thought I would be, well, I'll be blunt, I thought I'd meet crazy people who tell me that bodies could be reanimated. But what they were telling me was that they don't actually know if any of this will work, but they know that if you're buried, you will be eaten by worms and you will rot and nothing will happen, or you'll be, put in a fire and that will be the end of your body that way. But they see themselves as the experimental group. They know what's happening in the control group, and they don't promise that you will come back. They're just like, it's a maybe. The guy who invented it, Robert Ettinger, who wrote a book about it, The Prospect of Immortality. He wrote this in 1965, and it was just like, this might work. It could be an idea. And the whole book is really heavy on the science of freezing and really light on like how it might be reversed and how a body might come back to life. So it's all just people kind of shrugging at each other going, I don't know. But if you're a scientist and you say it definitely won't work, you're not telling the truth. And if you're a scientist and you say it definitely will, you're also not telling the truth. The point is that no one knows.
Okay, well, look, this seems like the end game of all of this. There is nonetheless some actual proper science, provable, repeatable results that's happening now. Something that's very, very striking is that all of us may already know somebody who was once frozen. Here's Joyce Harper, Professor of Reproductive Science at UCL, who has a very personal take on this.
I have a vested interest in this topic because my twins were born from frozen embryos. So they were frozen when they were 3-day cells, and a few months after that they were thawed and then put back in my womb, and then they grew into my sons. So when the embryo is ready to be frozen, what happens is the embryologist puts the embryo through some special solutions, because when we freeze something, what we're worried about is the water forming ice crystals and then splitting the cells or destroying the cells. So we have to use special cryoprotectants that will replace the water in the cells. What people normally use now is a process which is much quicker called vitrification, but it freezes the embryo very quickly, so it just takes a few minutes. Embryos have been stored for decades now. It's been a very successful procedure. As I said, I had mine frozen 18 years ago. Globally, the number of embryos, I don't think anyone could estimate it, but it will be millions. There'll be millions of embryos frozen around the world.
So Pedro, this works.
Absolutely. I mean, we've brought embryos back to life that were cryopreserved for 30 years. So if someone tells you that nobody has been cryopreserved and brought back to life, you could argue, although with some caveats, that some people are alive now that have been cryopreserved, although admittedly at a time when they were tiny microscopic embryos.
We talked about the process there. Joyce mentioned about cells being split or destroyed by the water. So what has to happen?
So the major problem when you go at low temperatures, particularly below zero, right, is that ice forms. And you have these ice crystals which are sharp and they can damage cells and molecular components and they can kill the cells. So in order to minimize our formation, you tend to use this substance called cryoprotectants, which is essentially antifreeze substances like glycerol and ethylene glycol. And so you add these substances in order to minimize ice formation, in order to cryopreserve cells and small tissues.
And so when we freeze embryos, do we push the water out from embryos and replace it with this?
One way is, yes, it's just called vitrification, where you replace the water with cryoprotectants. So you have a very high concentration of cryoprotectants, so it doesn't freeze anymore. It actually doesn't become solid anymore. It's a glass-like consistency. So that's one way of cryopreserving embryos.
So hold on, you put loads of antifreeze inside the cells, turn them into this glass-like thing, and then when they come back, what do you do with the antifreeze?
Once you are going to rewarm your sample, you essentially wash out or you remove the cryoprotectants and you replace it with water or solution, whatever you're using to grow those type of cells.
Sorry, and that's been going on for
30
decades.
years.
Yeah,
Just injecting cells with antifreeze.
Yeah.
Yes, that's been going on for quite a long time. I mean, glycerol, which was the first cryoprotectant, was discovered, I think, in the late 40s, here in London, actually.
So why can't you do bigger organs then? Why can't you just inject the heart with antifreeze?
It's a physics problem. If you have a larger organ, it's going to take longer for it to cool down. because it takes longer for the temperature to cool down, then you have to use higher concentrations of cryoprotectants, and that's going to cause more damage at the higher temperature.
And then when you thaw it, it doesn't work anymore.
Exactly.
So we can do it for cells. We can't do it for large organs. Are we even on the way to being able to do it for large organs?
There has been some advances. You can vitrify rabbit kidneys. Of course, rabbits are smaller than humans, so their kidneys are also smaller. But you can vitrify rabbit kidneys. You can rewarm them, and then you can implant them back into rabbits, and they will function.
I was telling Dara about hamsters earlier, about frozen hamsters, because that's something that people have done, right?
People have done that decades ago. It's not been replicated to my knowledge. But yes, hamsters also hibernate, which I think is another factor to keep in
look,
mind.
I mean, there are animals. I mean, we have a tortoise, and we just stick him in a drinks fridge for 4 months.
Are you supposed to do that?
Yeah, I think so. He's recovered very well from it.
When he wants to get out, is he like banging on the door?
He's gone through a few of the bottles. And we go in and there's empties clanking around. It's gone.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
We are getting somewhere here, though, because we can successfully actually freeze small cells. And then the point you make about hibernation is an interesting one, about lowering the temperature, because there is actually another pretty cool example that involves a whole animal. Because here is Dr. Hanan Haj Musa from the Babraham Institute in Cambridge to tell us about a frog with a special power.
So during my PhD and master's, I worked on examining the mechanisms of how animals can survive extreme environments. My absolute favorite and a popular pick is the wood frog. You can find them all across North America, all the way up to northern Canada and Alaska. And as soon as temperatures start to drop below zero, the wood frog will kind of turn on its adaptations that it has. Within 24 hours, typically less, they're frozen solid. No heartbeat, no breathing, no measurable brain activity. They're literally turned into froxicles. And they can stay solid for weeks and months. The wood frog has a few mechanisms up its sleeve. So as soon as the winter temperatures start to drop, their bodies start to shut down. Yeah, it's called metabolic rate depression. Whatever process they can shut down, they shut down. But they also need to freeze. And they do this by dehydrating their cells. So they pull out all the water from their cells, or most of the water, and then they are able to deposit it in their abdomen. And in this way, they can freeze the water as a big block of ice in their abdomen. And this keeps it safe from damaging their cells. And to protect their cells even more, they're able to pump their cells with ridiculous amount of sugars. So they fill their cells with glucose, and it protects their organs and cells from getting frostbite when they thaw. And it's really cool. It's wild.
Well, that's the answer then, Pedro, isn't it? Surely just to get all of the water into sort of your abdomen, fill your veins and vessels with sugar. Done.
Yes. So you can use certain sugars to, like trehalose, in cryopreservation. So sugars are already used in some cryopreservation protocols. We are aware of that. However, I think there's other intrinsic adaptations of the cells of the wood frog that our cells don't have. So it's not that simple.
Okay, all right. So let's say you've got like an 80-year-old man, right? They don't need to be a man. Let's just imagine I didn't say that.
They mostly are, though. I think they're mostly men,
yeah.
yes.
They are mostly men, and they don't have any one religious or political leaning, but I was told they're mostly men, but also it's men signing up their families, so you get a lot of women that way.
Right, I see. No women leading the charge, no?
No, but there are a lot of people in their 20s and 30s who see a kind of future in technology. So there is a kind of change coming, but traditionally it has been men.
Okay, all right. So let's say then you've got an 80-year-old man and he's just died of a heart attack and he's frozen using the best methods that we have right now. What kind of future technology would you need to be able to thaw him and then just undo the heart attack?
So you'd have to figure out a way of, when you rewarm that individual, of preventing cell death from the cryoprotectants and from the ice. And then there would still be damage, which would have some sort of molecular scale nanotechnology repair that we simply don't have now. And of course, you'd have to fix the disease that killed him, and you'd have to fix aging itself, which we're not going to do anytime soon.
Of my many, many questions, here's the one that stands out first, which is, you seem to be doubling up the problem, though, here. You seem to be going, right, we're going to let you die of something, then freeze you, so that we now have the dual problem of unfreezing you and then somehow unheart attacking you at the same time. Okay, would it be so much less appealing to them, the idea that we take you when you're relatively healthy and then go with the promise of immortality, dip you in liquid nitrogen?
I imagine there's a lot of paperwork involved in that.
There would be, and it would, because I can see why people go, but it seems to be as if, this sounds awful like I'm putting it in the way, when you save a game, but if you save a game at a point that you're about to die, and then every time you restart the game, you're right at the point where you're about to die. Surely the much more sensible, and obviously to these people deeply less appealing option would be to go, well, look, come in now. We got like Han Solo in Carbonite. We're going to put you into a machine and just totally freeze you. Would that work better?
Yes, that would work better. Yes. I think from a biological and cryopreservation and damage perspective, yes, that would be better. And for example, when animal studies are done, that's what is done. I think for humans, it raises a lot of ethical questions, a lot of legal questions as well.
But also, there are various ways to die that are better than other ones. Like your example of the heart attack is one of the worst ways to die because that was unplanned. You could be in a supermarket, whereas if you had a terminal cancer diagnosis, you could be in a deathbed and people could be waiting for the second you die, and that's when they start to freeze you. That's as close as they've got right now.
But it would raise certain marketing issues if they said, we're taking you now. This is the best time for you to go. Look, I mean, every time you wait, you are slightly more difficult to revivify. Yeah.
It's true. And the Cryonics Institute actually, they freeze animals as well, dogs and cats and iguanas and parrots. And they said that the animals get a better perfusion with the antifreeze stuff than humans do because the vet is on the corner of the block. So they go straight from being euthanized to going to the cryonics facility. But humans can't do that yet.
Thing is, okay, if we're talking about fantasy nano machines that can fix cell damage at the molecular level and all of this stuff, why not just extend the fantasy a bit further? Can't you just take out the sort of consciousness of somebody and implant them into a much better body? Like, I would like to come back as the Rock. How fun would that be? To live a new life as the Rock.
But the Rock is already living life as the Rock.
It doesn't have to be actually the Rock. But
okay.
Just walk around and feel so powerful. But then again, I guess you haven't really got much to lose if you're dead already, right? Because actually quite a lot of people do sign up for this. We got to speak to one guy who, from the UK, was an early adopter. Have a listen to this.
Hello, my name is Garrett Smythe, and I suppose I'm the first person in the UK to have signed up for cryonics, which is quite a few years ago now. And there's an organisation of which I just am a voluntary helper called Cryonics UK, which exists to educate the public and do research into cryonics, and in the process get people frozen and sent over to wherever they're stored, be it Switzerland or the USA. We're going to be able to affect people's lifespan in a large way. Life extension drugs and procedures will come about one day. And it occurred to me I might not live long enough to see that. I mean, I'm aging faster than they're making the breakthroughs. And it would be so upsetting to die just before they made the great breakthrough and everybody lived to 300 and I died at, 72. So I joined Alcor in order to be suspended and hopefully kept in good enough condition that I'll still be around when aging is conquered and they can fix the other things that have happened to me along the way.
I think a lot of this is not people wanting to have immortality, but people wanting youth. You know,
So it's different coming back as a 70-year-old man versus a 20-year-old.
Congratulations, you can live another 230 years as a 70-year-old man. Was that what you wanted? No, I wanted the rock fantasy that was mentioned earlier on. Yeah,
much better.
But within these businesses, do they speak optimistically about this?
Yeah, most people I spoke to, they weren't doing this because they feared death. They were doing it because they had this optimistic idea of the future. They want more of life. The ideal would be to just extend this one, but they haven't figured that out yet either. So this was just one option.
I think as someone who works on aging and longevity, the point is that, of course, nobody wants to live a long time in a period of decrepitude and pain and suffering. But if you could turn a 70-year-old into a 20-year-old, if you could become young again, then the vast majority of people would like to live longer as a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old.
Oh, I was an idiot when I was a 20-year-old.
With the knowledge of a 70-year-old, but the body of a 20-year-old.
Now, with all you know.
I'd be an absolute queen.
Well, if you could go back with all of your knowledge now.
Very true. Yes. I want to know a bit more about the practicalities of this, though. So talk us through the process. What actually happens?
Well, if you're on your deathbed and the people come and they wait for you to die, they put you in this ice bath, and then they have this heart-lung resuscitator that they put above your chest. It essentially looks like a toilet plunger suspended, and that keeps your heart moving. And so they're essentially using the structure inside your body to cool everything down. They're using the structure that's there, and they transport that body in the ice bath to either Detroit or Switzerland or Arizona, and from there it basically goes through a process of embalming, but they're not using embalming fluid, but it is the same process. It's an embalmer who does it in Detroit. She used to work in a funeral home. But what it actually does is it shrinks the person, because they're trying to take the water out of the cells so that they don't break. They explained it to me.
Mummified?
They look mummified, but the way it was explained to me is it's like they take a grape and they make a raisin.
Oh, this is horrible.
Because you know the way we keep turning raisins back into grapes? We can't even do that.
Then they put you in this sort of sleeping bag thing and attach you to a backboard. And then in the Cryonics Institute, it's this massive warehouse with all of these pulleys and chains across the ceiling. And they keep you in this, it's like a cooling box. And you're there for, it's about 48 hours. So you're brought down in temperature gradually. It's all done by a computer. And then when you're at the temperature that you need to be, you're taken out of this box and you are suspended in the air, and then you travel through the warehouse, and then you are plopped head down into a cryostat, which is essentially a big thermos. It's got layers of insulation, it's got a big cork at the top, and it's full of liquid nitrogen, but you're stored head down like a bat, because they figure if, there's a leak, the last thing to thaw will be your brain, because that's the most important thing. That's the blueprint of who you are. They can get you a new toe in the future, but they can't get you a new brain.
Oh, in the future? Oh, it's incredible.
Do people share these vats, or are they?
Yeah, you can fit 6 to 8 people. Depends on the size of the vat. Sometimes there are animals in there. The bigger animals go in with the humans.
Are there family vats, or is it? Could you be in with the strangers?
It's all strangers, it depends on what time you arrive, because they're not going to remove people from their vat. So it's just as you come in.
So you're raisinified in your sleeping bag and you spend your eternal rest in a vat next to 7 strangers.
Yeah, whoever it is. I mean, there are people in there who know each other. Robert Ettinger, who's the guy who wrote the book in the 60s, The Prospect of Immortality, the very first patient in the Cryonics Institute was his mother. And then that was followed a few people along by his first wife. And then there was his second wife, a few other people along. He didn't die until he was the 106th person to go into a tank.
I mean, that 105 were his wives.
Well, in the multiple wives thing is interesting, because in the book, he even has a theory for what you should do in the future when we're all reanimated and all of your multiple wives come with you. And his thing was that in the future, they will also have sorted out monogamy. That will be a thing of the past. We'll be into polyamory now.
Oh, the future.
Oh, it's going to be May. I'm so sad I'm going to miss that. It sounds so good. It sounds like everything you thought needed to be done will be solved by the future.
Extraordinary. Were you tempted when you were there? Were you like, yeah, I could see myself hanging upside down as a human raisin?
Not even in the slightest. Absolutely not. Actually, the woman who does all of the embalming, she's not even signed up either. And the reason she's not signed up is not because she doesn't believe in the technology, because she does. She just doesn't think it's worth coming back.
How about you, Pedro?
So I'm not signed up for cryonics. I think I think the chances of it working are very, very, very low. But you could ask the question, but what if you were a billionaire? If I were a billionaire, I think it would be a different question, because I wouldn't have anything to lose.
Wow, Dara.
It's a gamble with no downside, really, because you're already dead. What is significantly more interesting is the fact that we already do it to a certain extent, and that we could possibly, the aim of creating a library of transplant donations would be an astonishing thing if we could do that.
Absolutely. But what I want to emphasize is that we understand it. I mean, there are problems we don't fully understand, like Alzheimer's disease or aging. For cryopreserving larger organs, we understand it. We have to minimize cryoprotectinocyticity, minimize ice formation, and so on. So it's more of an engineering problem. And that makes me more confident. And one of the things that I would predict is that we are going to develop human biostasis, reversible biostasis, long before we cure diseases of aging. And that raises the question. So once we have human biostasis, people can be cryopreserved when they know they have a terminal condition and it's safe and it works. What are we going to have? Are we going to have massive, storage of patients with incurable diseases? What is going to happen?
How bizarre if in the magical future, the people who went into biostasis are woken up at the same time as the people who are turned into raisins. And they go, oh no, I just went to sleep until I solved my thing. What are you?
Why do you look like that?
Oh my God, that is bizarre. That would seem unfair. Are you convinced? Would you?
Do you know, I have to say, I mean, I was quite sceptical about it, but the way you describe it is... I mean, I still don't want it for me, frankly, but it sounds like there is going to be a point where this is a real conversation that we're having, like proper scientific discussion. Because at the moment, I think it's just upside down raisins. Thank you very much to our guests, Hayley Campbell and Pedro Margueles. Okay then, Elspeth, I hope we've answered your question. That yes, it is possible to freeze things and not kill them in the process, but maybe not humans yet.
Yeah, but in the magical future, Elspeth, all the problems will be solved. And then we'll be able to do it.
And maybe raisins will become grapes again.
What a future that will be. Subscribe to Curious Cases on BBC Sounds and make sure you've got push notifications turned on, and we'll let you know as soon as new episodes are available.
Hello, I'm India Ackerson, and this funny thing happened to me once. I was born, and so were you. And the thing is, from the moment egg met sperm, we've been shaped by our world in so many more ways than you think. And our series Child from BBC Radio 4 gets into that. The extraordinary life events of pregnancy, birth, and the first 12 months tell us a lot about ourselves, our society, and where we might be heading. The brain of a baby holds the secrets to the origins of human thought. Mothers undergo transformations we are only just comprehending. And the way attitudes to birth change affects every single one of us. Listen on BBC Sounds.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.